A lot of you watched my I Quit Weed in 131 Days video long time ago, I think even a couple years ago. And I wanted to touch base with you guys because um, I wanted to tell you guys what it was like after that initial motivation wore off. We had so many comments on that video, so many people that felt like they were in the same situation, just starting their quitting journey. So I wanted to kind of talk about how that happened, how it went for me, and also just talk about not just the physical changes that occurred, but a lot of the mental, emotional stability that I either gained or didn't gain after the fact. And, quitting wasn't the hardest part. Really, it was staying aligned with who I was trying to become was the hardest part. So let's dive into it and give you some more detail. Okay, so right off the bat, the mental withdrawal was much harder than the physical, which kind of makes sense. There weren't a whole lot of physical things that happened after I stopped smoking marijuana over 2 years ago. The mental stuff that still lingered on was, things like I used weed as a stress reliever. I used it to kind of cure boredom sometimes. I also, like I mentioned in that first video, used it as a catapult into my gaming addiction. So those are some of the big heavy hitters that I was using it for, and also just avoiding my overall emotions. At the time, my wife knew, very stoic. There wasn't a lot. I wasn't sharing a whole lot of emotions about anything, and that was excitement about what we were doing in life currently, work, all that kind of stuff. So those were the biggest things. It wasn't really the physical stuff that changed, and the hardest part for me going through that phase was I was still so attached to the person that depended on weed to essentially live because I had been smoking it for so long. And I know a lot of you resonate with that. And that's probably some of the hardest stuff that you guys had. Just listen as I walked, walked through the comment section and seeing all the struggles that you guys had. You shared so many vulnerable stories. So if you're watching this video and you commented on that first video, definitely comment down below. Let me know, where you're at in your journey. I'd love to reconnect. Some of you were on day one, some of you were, several months in. I don't remember if there was any individuals that were in that like years 1, 2, or 3, but let me know down in the comments because I'd love to hear where you're at from a status point of view. So yeah, not physical changes for me. It was all mental, just trying to make sure that I didn't go back to the version of me that really was dependent on it. So like I said, once that motivation started to wean down, I can't really put an exact number of days on it. I think it was probably like between 30 and 45, 50 days where that motivation to stay on that uh, path to quitting really was cemented in, because motivation was at all-time high. It was like, I'm doing it, I'm getting there, and it felt really good. The reason why is because I was finally getting some clarity in my life. I had some energy back, and I was feeling proud of myself, which for the first time in a long time maybe was something that I was feeling, because there has been so few far in between when I've actually felt proud of myself for doing something, because I struggled through life for a very long time. Henceforth, why marijuana was always something that was in my life, because it kind of took that away. Like it numbed that to the point where I didn't have to worry about feeling good about myself because I couldn't really feel anything at all. And that's, that doesn't, you don't take that as serious as it sounds. I obviously did feel emotions, but throughout the day when I wasn't smoking, I was pretty steady, almost like an even keeled kind of person. But on the inside was when I was hurting the most, because I knew that all the times that I was going to go down and smoke, and because it was always before I went to bed and then before my wife went to bed, and then it would be just playing games till 3 in the morning and whatever else I was doing. But in that time frame, that's when everything was just silenced. But without weed, I would sit up, stare at the ceiling. My mind would be racing, all that kind of stuff. Again, all things that you guys probably experienced. So yeah, it was at 30 to 45, 50 day motivation was at all-time high. And the lesson that I really took from that was that, those are only the mechanisms, right? The whole point is you got to build new coping mechanisms, and weed is a coping mechanism for all like the negative things that run through our mind. So I had to really try to teach myself positive coping mechanisms. And I had a few in my life, exercise and stuff like that. Love to get outside and do things, but the day only I always looked forward to the time when I got home and I could smoke, because my mind was just racing the whole day, and all that anxiety, all that anger, all that emotion immediately fell off my shoulder the moment I could start smoking. So one of the key points in where I was trying to identify who I was going to be and then avoid the person who was dependent on marijuana, when that fog started to lift, my thoughts got louder. And so I was really coming face to face with my emotions head on for the first time. All the things that I've been through, all the things that I maybe put past people in past relationships, whether they were girlfriends or whoever. My wife is included in that, my family members, all that kind of stuff. And it's not a great feeling when you really, fumbled on a lot of situations because of this one thing. And when you look at it from that lens and from that perspective, it's like, seems like such a silly thing, but so many people feel like marijuana in general, like, again, I used to say this all the time, I'm not addicted to marijuana. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have felt the same thing. I can quit whenever I want, but it's really not that easy. Um, and the real battle starts when that novelty wears off, when you shed that from your existence and you understand the person you're trying to become. That's when the real battle with quitting and being aligned with that better version of you really starts. It's very difficult, um, and it took some time, but like I said, 2 years later, here we are. Haven't touched it, but the only reason I haven't touched is because I did finally step into the individual who did not need marijuana to become that person. So the identity shift is the real win here. And I stopped identifying with someone who was trying to quit, because I've tried to quit so many times in my life, and I would quit for maybe 3 or 4 months, and then it's just like anything. Take nutrition, for example, or exercise. I went 2 weeks to the gym, and I'm really proud of myself. So now I deserve a cheat meal. And really, that's, in essence, it's counterproductive. Some people can do that and then just continue on with their exercise program and continue making those results. So as I mentioned from that previous video, this is for people who really struggled with maintaining that identity. If you're not someone who identifies with that and who struggled with that, then I've seen some of you in the comments. This isn't a video for you. This is the video for people who really struggle with that identity, with staying aligned with the person they're trying to become, and put that person they're trying to shed and get rid of in the past. So keep strolling if that's you, but just want to make that clear, because again, a lot of people, you hop in the comments and you're like, oh, that's not that hard. It's not that hard, but it takes a lot of effort. And I don't want to take that away from anyone. Again, 2 years, going on 3 years sober. My wife brought it up to me a couple weeks ago. And at first I'm like, yeah, 2 years. But no, when you're in these situations and you've overcome something that difficult, something that was really plaguing your life, like it plagued mine so heavily. And I need to do better at just making that the spotlight, because it's so important in everything we do. I should have said, heck yeah, like that's an amazing feat. I can't believe I was able to overcome that, because for so long I didn't think I was going to be able to. And you might be thinking that yourself. You might be thinking, Josh, I've been on day one multiple times. So have I. I mean, I spent 8 to 10 years going back and forth from day one, day 30, month 6, year one. I've been there, so I know how difficult it is. And all I'll say is it just takes a lot of hard work, dedication, patience. You got to have the right support system. I touched on some of that stuff in my first video, what you really need to overcome it. Reiterate that here, because I really think that, all that stuff is just as important as yourself doing it. And it's, in many occasions, you can't just do it alone. Without my wife, not really sure if I would have been able to do it, quite honestly. Certainly pursued it many times. Why did it stick this time versus not sticking other times? Variety of reasons, but honestly, it does come down to all those things put into one. It's not just one. You can't just have a great support system and continue to feel like you're not capable of doing it. That's where the identity shift comes from. You got to tell yourself you have to go from someone who's trying to quit and someone who doesn't need it, right? It's that fake it till you make it mentality. And it's not literally like, oh, I'm going to fake to be this person. No, you just act like the person you want to become. That's totally different. You're not faking who you are anymore. You're really becoming and stepping into the person you are. I have a tattoo on my arm that says, play the cards you're dealt. Everyone gets a different set of cards to play with. That doesn't mean that they're better than you, doesn't mean that they're any lesser than you. Everyone's got the ability to achieve greatness within them because we're human beings, and God has gifted us with that purpose. All you got to do is find your purpose and find your why and find that willpower. Because like I said, it's not going to be easy, but some of these things will help you along the way. I feel, and you try them out. I'm always about experience. I've experienced a lot in my life. These videos are only that, sharing my experience. You guys try it. If they don't work, there's a ton of other people out there that talk about this stuff too. So you don't just have to take my word for it. Try it out for yourself. I always tell everyone I'm a test subject, because everything I tell you guys or suggest to you guys has all been lived experience, something that I've already done and overcome. And there's multiple ways to skin a cat. So it doesn't mean that this is the only one that you've got to try. But yeah, so the only way that the habit sticks is if the identity changes. So you got to change yourself. You got to change something about who you were before and step into the person that you're trying to become. So the key point there, guys, is like I mentioned, I didn't just quit weed, okay? I stopped being the person who needed it. The person I was trying to become, the person who had all these goals, all these dreams, that big vision, I was finally able to stay consistent on that path, who at the end of that path, that's the person that I was going to become. That's the big key there. So what actually improved? Okay. Sleep quality. My emotional regulation was always fairly good. The problem for me is at the end of the night, after the day was done and I held all that stuff in like a ball of yarn wrapped with, have you ever seen that, like a rubber bands wrapped around so many times, it's huge. And if you just took one little slice to it, it's going to completely break and expand. That's how I felt at the end of the night. And that's why weed was such an important thing for me, because it stopped that thing from completely destroying my identity, who I thought I was, as a person, for my relationships, all that stuff, who I was at work, completely shattered it. What else changed? Consistency, presence with my family, with my wife, my personal self-respect, which, that was the biggest change. Was I respected myself finally. It wasn't the productivity that was the biggest goal here. It was, I need to change myself, and I accomplished that. And it took a lot longer than maybe I thought it would, but everyone's got a different time frame on some of these things. So yeah, that was the biggest thing. Is honestly my self-respect, my self-trust. I've gone 2 years now, and I've had some situations where, I was sitting back and saying like, man, a nice joint would be great right now, but I don't act on that. And as quickly as it enters my mind, I can flee. It's a fleeing thought. I don't even entertain it. I don't let it sit up there and marinate, none of that stuff. And again, that just comes from consistency and practice, all the things that improve once you finally come out of that. Again, when that time is, I've mentioned in the comments to several of you, I don't know what that time is for you. For some people, it's 10 days. For some people, it's 2 years. I would say 131 days from that first video. Well, it was quite honest. Like around that time was finally when I really started to feel like I could control the urges that were coming through, and that I did not need any of that stuff to, reinforce the person that I was, because my wife knew it the whole time, which is why she's a great supporter. Is she has always seen the version of me that that I've been trying to achieve well before she even entered my life, and without quitting weed and video games. There was a couple other things in there, but those two were the biggest one. And topic of the video, weed was also a big one. So changing those things really changed my life. So the truth about relapse thoughts, I know everyone's a little different with what they experience. Like I just mentioned, they come and they go as quickly as they come. When I was first in that 50 to 60 day range up into that 100 days, they were there a lot. It was difficult at times, but I had the clarity of who I wanted to become. I knew that I was on the right path. I had the support system in place, so I knew I wasn't going to go back to it. But for some of you, you know, don't expect them not to just completely go away. They're going to come every once in a while, and it's going to be on you and your new established habits to keep them at bay. You know, consistency, um, any other thing that you could probably think of, self-respect, self-trust, support, discipline. Discipline's a big one. You know, it's just like with anything. If you know you're out of shape, overweight, do you think going 2 weeks eating healthy and then grabbing a donut is going to be a really good thing for you? Probably not. So all those things really lead to it. And so for those who are trying to quit, okay, it does get clearer. It does get calmer. What time frame you're looking at, you know, don't think about the time frame. Think about how you feel. Think about who you're going to be once you get through that. And like I said, those thoughts are still going to come and go, but that doesn't mean you're weak for having them. Okay. Honestly, from my perspective, it's just a reminder to me that the person that is still inside me, the person who smoked weed, who was addicted to video games, who didn't have self-respect, who had no belief in himself, that person's still inside me, but I know how to shut that up real fast. And that person's never going to get out. Okay. Those crossroads moments in your life, tragic, tragedy, you know, maybe loss of life, a lot of stuff can happen that might reopen that gateway for you. That you might want to just say, that person needs to come out now because I don't know how to deal with it. Another thing that changed that I'll touch on just very briefly that really helped me was, you know, I don't want to say find God because I know that's a common phrase that people might say find. Honestly, I think what it was my wife prayed a lot for me, and in some way, shape, or form, it just sort of manifested itself. I do think it came down to a choice. I always was open to finding that clarity and having that relationship with, you know, God and Jesus and faith in general. But I tried to remain agnostic to it because I always thought it would manifest its way in something different, kind of like an epiphany or an experience with maybe God himself or Jesus, like, hey, speaking to you directly, Josh, you need to stop smoking weed. That's not really how it works. Really how it works is you ask for certain things, right? Without even asking him directly sometimes, and your life then begins to change for whichever way you've asked. I want to be successful. I want to be blah, blah, blah. I want to have this job. I want to do this. I want more patience. Next thing you know, you're presented with opportunities to have patience, to move up in your professional career, to become a better athlete, become a better father, all these things. God will change your life and give you those opportunities, but you need to recognize that God is the one giving you those opportunities. It's nothing else. It's not just chance. And that's what happened to me. And when I found out my wife was praying for me, that was very hard to overlook because I started to see it for what it was. God's been sending me signs my whole life, and I've ignored them. And I don't ignore them anymore. And I think that's why that's really, really stuck. Not the only reason, but giving your life to Jesus will also help you change your life. Having someone there who can take the burden off you, take your weakness from you, because that's what he died on the cross for, to, you know, take away our sins and help us live a life of fulfillment and um, really be the person that he called us to be, which we all have that destiny. We just got to find it. So we'll wrap it up here, guys. Again, let me know down in the comments where you guys are at in this journey. Had so many comments last time. just let us know if you're on day 1, if you're on day 30, if you've got multiple years in you. Let us know down in the comments. Love to hear where your progress is at, and look forward to more videos coming soon. We'll see you in the next one.